Hello, and welcome to the fourth in a series of videos on the 2016-2017 Writing Units of Study. Throughout this series of videos, we will explore the re-envisioned writing assessment tools and practices, as well as possibilities for aligning your instruction and assessment practices to empower your students to own the increasingly demanding expectations for writing. More specifically, in this video, we will explore how you might utilize the stance of teacher as writer to support your students as they investigate professional literature for writers to grow their individual writing processes and strategies. But first, let's take a moment to highlight and review the suggested performance tasks or writing assessment tools in Stage 2 of the 2016-2017 CCAP Writing Units of Study. When you access a writing unit of study in CCAP and click on the Stage 2 tab, you'll find a list of suggested performance tasks, including the Writing Assessment Practices page of the JLIT website, a writing progression, an on-demand performance task prompt, a rubric, and a corresponding checklist. In the previous videos of this series, we predicted that you might already be using these suggested performance tasks to design lessons that align the genre-specific writing units of study instructional practices with these re-envisioned writing assessment tools. However, we also predicted that you might be wondering how to tighten this alignment. To this end, we explored how you might support your students as they gather, immerse themselves in, and closely study the kind of writing they will be expected to write like. We also explored how you might introduce a checklist to your students, asking them to examine how the author of their self-selected mentor text demonstrated the criteria or grade level expectations. We also discussed that you might ask your students to identify one or two grade level expectations that they will need to further explore to better see what they might need to do as writers to meet these expectations. We then explored how you might support your students as they closely study and annotate mentor texts, and we noted that this close study might not only help students clarify specific craft moves they might make, but it might also help students see how to strategically use mentor texts to strengthen their vision of the criteria or grade level expectations outlined on the checklist. We explored how you might show your students how to use these notable skills, techniques, or craft moves to set specific goals for your writing work, enabling you to take the stance of teacher as writer, focusing your instructional write-alouds for whole group instruction, as well as one-on-one and small group writing conferences. To further build on your stance of teacher as writer, we explored how you might continue to use instructional write-alouds to show your students how you expand a writing territory by considering less familiar or personal ideas related to your original territory. Ideas that require research that prompts you to ask about real life, real experiences, real people, and real beliefs. We also explored how you might prompt your students to return to the checklist, guiding them to specific strands or criteria on the checklist that highlight the significance of real-world writing purposes. More specifically, we discussed how these real-world writing purposes could be used as lenses for closely studying mentor texts, analyzing not only how, but also why an author varies her purposes throughout a single text. Furthermore, we discussed how you might use a series of instructional write-alouds over several days to illustrate your writing and explain your writing processes, highlighting how you might use these real-world writing purposes to focus your research work and further develop your ideas. At this point in the study, you might show students how you investigate and use professional literature for writers to grow your individual writing processes and strategies. More specifically, you might share how you use William Zinser's ideas on unity in his 2006 edition of On Writing Well to focus your writing work. This instructional think aloud might look and sound something like this. While I share my reading and think out loud, listen to the writing work I'm doing to create a workable plan for developing a cohesive draft, so that you can give the strategy of exploring professional literature for writers a try to focus your writing processes. In my writer's notebook, I have a series of write-like entries, one entry for each real-world writing purpose. The real-world writing purposes focused my research work, developing my ideas. But I'm wondering how I might prioritize and focus my write-likes to develop a single, cohesive draft. Right now, I have 6 separate standalone pieces, so I'm reading On Writing Well by William Zinser. More specifically, I'm reading Chapter 8 entitled Unity. In this chapter, Zinser claims that unity keeps readers from straggling off, satisfying their subconscious need for order, reassuring them that all is well. He goes on to discuss the choices writers make to develop a cohesive draft: unity of pronouns, unity of tense, and unity of mood. And then he poses 2 essential questions that writers must ask themselves. How much do I want to cover? What one point do I want to make? As I read these questions, I realized that when I ask myself these 2 questions, I can prioritize and focus my write-likes. I know that the one point I want to make in this draft is to call individual community members to work alongside the authorities to ensure that the costs of our dams and reservoirs do not begin to outweigh their current benefits. I know now that I want to take a stand in this draft and focus my ideas, layering information, developing sections that will build on each other to propose a logical solution. As you continue to explore the 2016-2017 CCAP writing units of study and the re-envisioned assessment tools and practices, please contact a member of your secondary ELA content specialist team with your questions.